हाय दोस्तों, ब्रास ग्रुप के चैनल में आप सभी का स्वागत है। ब्रास ग्रुप आपके लिए लाया एक नया लेसन। आशा करता हूँ आप लोगों को पसंद आएगा। धन्यवाद।
All right. Now, interpleader suit. Now, before starting with the basic provisions and before reading out the provisions, I will just tell you what interpleader suit basically means. Interpleader suit basically means, just imagine a situation that you are having something which does not belongs to you, right? And which is not yours. Somebody has given it to you for safekeeping or something like that. And then there are two people who are claiming the same thing from you, right? Let's take a very generic, simple example. Let's say you found something, right? You found a gold ring. You were walking on the road and you found a gold ring, right? Then you being a good citizen and a very aware, nice citizen of India, what you do is you you paste a notice. You found a gold ring in your college, and you paste a notice in the college that look, this I found a gold ring. So to whomsoever it belongs, he can come and take from me. Now there are two people who come to claim the same thing from you, and both of them are claiming the right over that thing. Right, both of them, and don't give me those things that okay, the one who will give the right description, हम पूछेंगे रिंग कैसी थी, क्या डिजाइन था, ये सब चीजें भूल जाओ. But only for the purpose of explanation, I'm giving you this illustration. So let's say both of them are able to give an exact description of the ring also. Right, now how do you decide whom to give the ring? Right, so there is one person who is not the owner of the property, who has no right, interest or title in the property at all. And there are two people who are claiming the same thing from him. Now this person actually does not know whom to give it to, because both of them are claiming, and he is not a judge. He does not have he has no means to decide to whom the property belongs. So what this person can do? This person will take both of these people to court. And when he takes both of these people to court, he will become the plaintiff. That is the person who's having the property. Now, the ring, he becomes the plaintiff, and the other party, other two people who are actually contesting against each other. Right? So, these people, both of them who are claiming the ring, obviously they are contesting against each other. Both of them want the ring, so they are against each other. So, both of them are made the defendant. Right? Since they were not wanting to go to the court, they said, "नहीं हमें तो यहीं पे फैसला चाहिए, whatever." So the person who was having the possession of the property, he takes them to the court. And for court, somebody has to be a plaintiff and the other party has to be defendant. Now, in this case, this person who has the property, he becomes the plaintiff. And the other two parties who are claiming adversely to each other, who have claims which are against each other, now they in this case becomes the defendant, right? So I'll tell you what this type of suit is called as a interpleader suit, right? See, I'll tell you the general rule in CPC. General rule in CPC or general rule in any law is that when you are contesting against the party, this plaintiff versus defendant, right? So whosoever is in the defendant category, definitely they are one party and plaintiff is the opposite party. However, interpleader suit is kind of one exception to it, where the person is claiming, the plaintiff is not actually claiming the property, or he's not asserting any right over the property. In fact, so he is not claiming the property. It is the defendant who are contesting against each other, right? So since the defendants are contesting against each other, this is a very peculiar situation which generally does not happen, right? So that is why this is a special category of cases which has been a special category has been created in CPC for such cases, which is called as the interpleader suit. Class, have you got this point? The general rule may the plaintiff is contesting against the defendant. However, in this case, it is a very, very peculiar, specific kind of situation where the plaintiff is not contesting against the defendant. He is just kind of a facilitator, and the suit is actually happening between the defendants only. And since the defendants were not wanting to go to court or whatever reason, they have not gone to the court, and plaintiff has taken them to the court, and now the court will decide to whom the property belongs. So the person takes this matter to the court and tells the court, now you are the best judge, you decide to whom the property belongs, whom should I give it to? Fine, class? Class? Please respond.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me read out the sections, it will become clearer now. Alright, section 88. Right. Section 88 says, where interpleader suit may be instituted. So what are the cases in which interpleader suit can be instituted, or a plaint for interpleader suit can be filed, or the case can be started? Right? Now, where two or more persons claim adversely to one another the same debt. So firstly, there has to be two or more people. I just give you an illustration of two people. There can be a situation. Nasser, thank you. You have given us the provision. Okay, Utkarsh, you have a question, ma'am. Why would he be paid to file a suit where he is not claiming any benefit? I'll tell you, Utkarsh. He will be filing the suit because he is having a property and he that person should take it. Right, and he should get his lawful charges. Let's say the property was kept is with him. Somebody has kept this property in his godown, so he's charging money from for keeping the property in godown. Now there are two people who are saying this is my property, and he cannot decide. Right, so in that case he needs his dues also. So that's why. And he will bear the cost, Anjali. I'll come to all this thing. He is not going to bear the cost of the pain because the court is going to order the cost of the suit to be paid to the interpleader. Right? So let me just come to the provision and all these questions will be answered. Right. Now, okay. Where there are two or more persons claim adversely to one another, so there can be two people or more than two people who are claiming adversely to one another, which means they are contesting against each other, right? And what are they contesting for? They are contesting for the same debts. There is some money involved, or there is some money or other property, movable or immovable, okay, from another person, which means that there is some money, some property, movable, immovable, or something is involved. Right, some kind of property is involved, and this property is with a third person, who in our case becomes a plaintiff, right? And who is ready to pay and deliver it to the rightful claimant. Such other person may institute a suit of interpleader against all the claimants for the purpose of obtaining a decision as to the person to whom the payment or delivery shall be made, and of obtaining indemnity for himself, right? Which means if he had to bear some cost for the purpose of a simple example that let's say the goods were goods were sent from some place and they were supposed to be delivered in Delhi. Now when the goods arrive at Delhi, at that spot, two parties are claiming, okay, goods belong to me. Then how will the carrier decide to whom to deliver the goods, right? He will deliver the goods. Let's say he was told that you deliver the goods at this spot and the parties will come and collect it, right? Now there are two parties who are coming to collect it, and right, this is again a hypothetical this situation, because obviously जो भेज रहा है वो बताएगा कौन सी पार्टी को देना है, but let's say जो भेज रहा है वाले पार्टी वाला नहीं है. In that case, both of them are claiming, so carrier has to recover his cost also, the cost of taking the goods from one place to another. So that has to be paid to the carrier. So he will decide. He obviously has to go to the court to decide कि एक तो मेरी cost दिलवाई और दूसरी बात कौन सी party को I should give the goods. You tell me please. And the cost that he's going to incur to file the suit and all that will be given back to him. So don't worry about that. Fine? Okay. So there are two or more parties who are claiming adversely or against each other, and they are contesting for what? They're contesting for same property or same money, or some sum of money, which is the same amount of money which is there. And there is a third person who is ready, who is having that property or that money or whatever, and is ready and willing to give it. He's not. See, one point which is very, very important is that this third party or this person, basically the plaintiff in this case, he is not claiming any interest whatsoever in the property. He has no interest, no claim, he is not asserting any claim, right, interest over that property at all. He is saying this property is not mine, it's not my property. It is somebody's property, but then there are 2 people, 3 people claiming whose property I do not know. Right? So that's the dispute all about. But he does want to recover any cost that he has incurred for keeping the goods in godown or for carrying the goods to some distance and all that. Right? So what does he do? Then he goes to the court and files a suit. Provided that where any suit is pending, in which the rights of all the parties can properly be decided, no such suit for the interpleader shall be instituted. Now, what does this proviso to Section 88 mean? Now, proviso to Section 88 means that, let's say, we'll go to the example where a ring was found and a person, okay. Let me change the facts a bit where you have to pay the cost also. Somebody name the most expensive breed of dog. There are many expensive breeds of dog. Name the most expensive one. Anyone?
Tibetan Mastiff.
Mastiff. Yeah, Mastiff is actually quite expensive. Okay. So let's say Tibetan Mastiff is found by you. As in, like, he was found roaming on the streets by you. And you do not know to whom it belongs, but it's a beautiful dog and you are an animal lover and a dog lover. So what you do is you take it to your home and and he's actually hurt also. You take him to a veterinary doctor also, and you take it to your home. You feed him, and obviously you complain. You give a notice about this to the concerned police station, and everywhere possible. You paste notice that I found a dog. Anyone, you give an ad in the newspaper. You post it on social media that anyone who I found this dog, whosoever is the owner of the dog, please contact me and all that. So there are 2 people and if you have kept pets at your place, I do not expect any such unfortunate event to happen to you. But this did happen to me. I had a beautiful dog. He was a Bakarwal dog that was bought from Afghanistan, and beautiful, very healthy dog. But somehow what happened that in the morning, because we had a huge lawn, he used to roam there, but somehow they always make a place to go out. So he escaped from the fence and then he was nowhere to be found. So for 1 week, we filed police complaints, everything we did, and we were looking for him throughout, Delhi and going everywhere. And, for your information's sake, there are professional dog robber, the people who professionally steal dogs, especially the expensive ones, right? So after, we did recover the dog, but after he came back, he was in so much of trauma. He was in so much of trauma that for 1 month he could hardly, he was just lying down and not, being himself and it took him almost a year to, not almost a year, but at least 6 months to, become normal as such, because he could not recognize people. So that is also one thing which can happen with dogs. All right. So, where was I? So you have found a dog and you are feeding that dog and you are taking him to vet and you're paying for his expense, for his, for his medical treatment and all that. Now, after let's say 2 months, there are two people who approach you, and they are claiming that they are owner of this dog, right? Now, what happens is you do not know, and dog is in again a traumatic state, and he cannot recognize anyone, so you cannot find out who the owner is. So, what you do is you file a suit. Interpleader suit. Look, this is not my dog. I do not intend to keep this dog. I have no interest in keeping that dog. But there are two people who are claiming this dog. So please decide to whom this dog belongs and give it to him. But I have spent a great deal of money on his treatment. He was badly injured, so I had to take him to regular visits to the veterinary doctor also. So I want the recovery of that money, and also I want recovery of the cost of filing of the suit. So this is one of the illustrations where you have incurred cost because of this and you want it recovered. However, if the situation is that before you could go to the court, one of the parties went to the court, right? When one of the parties went to the court against you, right? The party says, this is my dog, somebody found it, now I'm claiming it and he's not returning it to me. Right? If such suit is already pending, that's what the provisor says. If such suit is already pending in the court, then in such case, interpleaders and such suit should be such which will actually determine the rights of the party, which will actually lead to the disposal of the. Okay, Akansha says real owner can simply show the pictures of the dog. Okay, we are not going into the evidence part because the dogs actually look similar, and you will be able to recognize dog only when when जब तक मेरे पास dog नहीं था ना, I've kept 2 pets till now. Till the time I did not have my own pets, I would not differentiate one dog from other. And let's say they are all one breed dogs. So I would say, okay, they look so similar. How will the owner recognize? So, but when you start keeping dogs, you start, appreciating the differences and you recognize your own dog. So that's a different thing. So, Diksha, dogs look similar. Yes, but then owners can definitely recognize. Yes. So we are not going into the evidence part because these are all hypothetical situations. Fine? Okay. Now, so if there is already a suit filed which can decide the rights of the parties, in such a situation, there is no need of an interpleader suit and the court will not allow an interpleader suit to be filed. Why increase the litigation when there is one case going on which will decide the rights of the parties? Why go for another suit? So that is kind of a limitation that has been put on filing the interpleader suit. Till now, is it clear? Should I go to Order 35? Class, tell me.
Ma'am, can you please give example of immovable property with regard to Section 88?
Let's say you are the caretaker of a property, right? Or you are the, you have been appointed, receiver to care, you are the liquidator of a property, you are not a liquidator, you are the executor of a will, right? And in the will, it said my son, movies, I'm illustrating, I'm picking up illustration from movies, where the person says my son is going to inherit the property. Now, who is the son? We do not know. And there are two people who come and claim, I am the son of this person. Right? He's a long lost son. The father never saw the son, nobody saw the son, and he comes. So that's like a very filmy example that I've given you. Right? Where you do not know who. Yes, tell me, Anjali.
Ma'am, for an example, there is a property and 2% and there. Ma'am, for an example, there is a property, immovable property, and there is there is no paper or other documents which can prove that the person, this property belongs to A person or B person. And when I think मैम एडवर्स पोसेशन में से हो सकता है ना कि उस सिचुएशन में 2 से ज़्यादा लोग आके बोले कि दिस इज माई प्रॉपर्टी एंड दिस इज माई प्रॉपर्टी इन दैट सिचुएशन आई थिंक
No, but they're claiming from whom? That is the point. There has to be a third person from whom they are claiming. See, if Anjali, if it is a dispute regarding the right to property, in that case, if two people are saying this is my property and this is my property, what they would do is they would file a suit against each other. Right?
Yes.
Right, Anjali?
Yes, ma'am.
So they are not claiming it from a third person. Interpleader suit is very specific. Class, please do understand that interpleader suit can be filed only in a very specific kind of situation. You do not have interpleader suits being filed generally in every situation. It is a very specific kind of situation, and the specific condition or requirement for this is that people should be claiming property from someone. If there is a dispute regarding the ownership of a property, then those who are claiming that property can file a suit against each other. So that is not an interpleader suit. This situation arises when two parties are claiming same thing from a third person who is having the possession of the property. Right? So this point should be very clear in your mind when you talk about interpleader suit. Fine, class? Class? Fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Now
ma'am.
let's come to Order 35. Okay, let's come to Order 35 now. Order 35 talks about a plaint in interpleader suit. So when a plaint is being filed in an interpleader suit, some questions are coming. I'll look at all the questions. Just let me read out this order. Now, plaint in an interpleader suit. In every suit of interpleader, the plaint shall, in addition to the other statement necessary for a plaint, state these are the things, which means that when this third person who is having the possession of the property, that two or more people are claiming from him. In such a situation, his plaint I've told you, plaint is the statement of claims that the person who's filing the suit makes, right? So when he's filing the plaint in the court, in that time, this plaint is going to have everything that is required to be in a plaint. We are going to do Order 7. Order 7 will talk about the requirements of the plaint. So वो सारी चीजें तो होनी ही चाहिए. उसके साथ ही साथ these three additional things should also be written. And what are they? Firstly, that the plaintiff claims no interest in the subject matter in dispute other than the charges or cost, which means that the plaintiff is saying that I do not have any interest in this property whatsoever. This is not my property. I want to give it to that real owner, but I want my charges. Whatever expenses I have incurred for maintaining this property or keeping this property, I want those charges, and I also want the cost. Cost for what? Cost for the suit that I've instituted. I had to pay the court fees. I have to hire a lawyer. So all these charges that I've incurred, I want that, and I want all the costs or expenses that I've incurred for maintaining that property. Right? But I do not have any interest in this property whatsoever. This person has to declare. This is a dispute only between the defendants, and I'm just, I just want this matter to come to the court. That's why I brought the suit. Second thing that he has to write is the claims made by the defendant severally, which means that he has to give the claims of each of the defendants. Let's say that person is claiming property on the basis of the fact that he inherited this property from his father. Then he has to write, Mr. A is claiming the property on the basis of inheritance. And let's say the other party is claiming the property on the basis that it was gifted to him by that father, or by the owner of the property. Then you write, Mr. B is claiming the property on the basis that it was gifted to him, right? So I do not know whom to give the property to. So you please decide. So whatever be the claims of the property, whatever be the arguments of the defendants, why, on what basis they are asking the right over that property or that money or that movable thing or immovable thing, that has to be stated. Now, thirdly, that there is no collusion between the plaintiff and any of the defendants. Now, he also has to make a declaration. Collusion kya hota hai? You have done it in Family Law 1. Tell me what is collusion? Anyone? Family Law 1 में collusion किया है Section 23 में? When you're talking about divorce by mutual consent, there should be no collusion between the parties. No other you have done. There should be no collusion. All right, no issues. Collusion basically means when two parties join hands to fool the court. So collusion is basically when you want some kind of relief from the court which is not otherwise possible. So आप लोग क्या करते हो? The opposite parties come together and they kind of make up a situation so that the court will give them the relief that they wanted. Right? Now, in context of secret or illegal cooperation or conspiracy in order to deceive others. Yes, Arthur, this is the meaning of collusion. So when we talk about collusion in legal sense, that means you're trying to get some relief from the court. You're colluding with each other so that you can fool the court and get the relief that you want. Right? So the person has to give a declaration that there is no collusion between the plaintiff and any of the defendant. Right? Now, yes.
Can you give an example of collusion in respect of interpleader suit?
Okay. Example of, just give me a moment. Yes, you wanted an example of collusion in interpleader suit. I am reminded of example from family law, but that would not fall under interpleader suit. Should I give that example for time being?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, listen to that example for time being till the time something comes to me in collusion. Earlier, divorce by mutual consent was not a ground for divorce under Hindu Marriage Act. That was added by the amendment. So earlier, if the husband and wife had no, and obviously you know the divorce can be taken only on some ground. You cannot just go to the court and take a ground. We do not want to live with each other, that's why we're taking divorce. That can happen now because we have divorce by mutual consent, but earlier this provision was not there. Till the time this provision was not there, if the parties had nothing against each other, as in like no adultery, no cruelty, no desertion, nothing was there, but still they wanted divorce from each other, then what they would do is they would collude with each other, which means what? Husband and wife would enter into a conspiracy to deceive the court. Like for example, the husband can say, ask the wife, okay, you put a charge of adultery on me. Adultery is a ground for taking divorce. So you file a petition for divorce and I will help you get some evidence to prove the fact that I am adulterous. And in fact, I will not take a proper defense also. So my adultery will be proved. Once my adultery is proved, we can get divorce from each other. Right? So basically what they're doing, they are conspiring because divorce by mutual consent was not a ground for divorce. What they're basically doing is they are conspiring with each other to get the relief of divorce, which was not available to them if they would have gone by the straight path. Right? So this is one of the illustration of collusion which comes to my mind. But in the sense of interpleader, nothing is clicking right now. Okay?
Ma'am,
Now, yes, Antika?
may I give an example, if you permit?
Sure.
So I'm not sure, but it might clear the issue that, okay, so if there was a deceased person and he held a property and he has entrusted the property with a certain person, but he has also gifted the same property to another person. So now the person's son is claiming inheritance over the property, but the property is already gifted to the other person, so he becomes a defendant number 2. So the son joins hands with the plaintiff who is entrusted with the property and says that we might go to the court, and there you can say that in such a way they might go to the court and the property might be entrusted to the son despite that it was gifted to the other person due to inheritance.
All right. Now that can be one of the illustrations. Definitely it can be. However, in this case, how he would influence the court, because the plaintiff does not have any influence on the court as such. Because a suit will actually lie between the defendants when they go to the court. The court has to give a decision whether if the gift was given, is there a gift deed or not? Because for gift of immovable property, it has to be in writing, registered and all that. So not going to the technical definition, if just we ignore the law part, definitely that can be one of the illustrations, Ambika, good. But if we go into the legal point, because then there might be some technical difficulties. But otherwise, it's fine. Okay. Now, let's come to the second part, which is Rule 2, which is payment of the things claimed into court. Where the things claimed is capable of being paid into the court or placed in the custody of the court, the plaintiff may be required to so pay or place it before he can be entitled to any order in the suit. So which means what? That let's say the plaintiff is having the dog or the gold ring or something which is in his possession, and that is the basically subject matter of the dispute. Then if the court says, okay, we are kind of releasing you from the responsibility, you deliver the property to us and we will keep it in the court custody only, right? So that movable property can be dog could obviously the court will not ask, but if it's a movable property like let's say the gold ring or whatever that we were talking about, then in that case the court can keep that property with itself rather than it being there with the plaintiff, right? Now, procedure where the defendant is suing the plaintiff. Rule 3, it says where any of the defendants in an interpleader suit is actually suing the plaintiff in respect to the subject matter of such suit, the court in which the suit against the plaintiff is pending shall, on being informed by the court in which the interpleader suit has been instituted, stay the proceedings as against him, and his cost in the suit so state may be provided for in such suit, but if and so far as they are not provided for in the suit, they may be added to the cost incurred in the interpleader suit. Which basically means what? That if there is an interpleader suit which is already going on, the plaintiff has already filed an interpleader suit, and now the defendant goes ahead and files another suit against the plaintiff, then in that case, even if ideally the court should not entertain the suit, should not admit the suit, but if the court admits the suit, then when it comes to know that there is an interpleader suit, then they are going to stay the proceedings against the plaintiff, right? And they will let the interpleader suit be decided. ठीक है, you appreciate the difference. अगर एक सूट पहले से चल रहा है, बाद में you want to file an interpleader suit, that will not be allowed. However, पहले से interpleader suit चल रहा है and the defendant goes ahead and files a suit against the plaintiff, which the court does not know that the interpleader suit is going on. In such a case, what will the court do? The moment it comes to know that the interpleader suit is going on, in that situation, the court will stay the proceedings of that case and it will tell that the interpleader suit be decided. Fine? Now, Rule 4, procedure at the first hearing. Now, what happens at the first hearing? I've told you the way the criminal court works is, first there is a plaint that is filed. After the plaint, there is a written statement that is filed. After the written statement, there is both parties will be called to the court, right? Now, that is the date of the first hearing. Now, at that time, the court is going to frame issues and all that. That is in a normal suit. Now, let's see what happens in the case of a interpleader suit. Interpleader suit में क्या होता है? At the first hearing, the court may. What are the things that the court can do at the time of first hearing? Just a moment. Right. Can you hear me now, Saf?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay. Fine. All right. Okay. Good. Fine. So, what can the court do at the time of first hearing? The first thing the court can do is declare that the plaintiff is discharged from all the liability to the defendant in respect to the thing that has been claimed, award him his cost and dismiss him from the suit. Which means it will tell the plaintiff, okay, you have done your job, now you are no longer responsible, we have taken over the matter. No, so now you are discharged from all your liabilities and all your responsibilities, so you can go now. And whatever cost you have incurred, that will be given to the plaintiff, right? Second thing, it can do what? Or if it thinks fit that justice or convenience so requires, retain all parties until the final disposal of the suit. Or if the court feels that no, we cannot, let the plaintiff go right now. He needs to stay till that the suit is properly disposed of, and this is what the justice requires. So in such a case, the court can ask the person to stay on, right? Now, second thing, where the court finds that the admission of the parties or any evidence enable it to do so, it may adjudicate the title of the thing claimed. Right. If there is, let's say mostly, if the evidences which are there in the case and other circumstances are such, then the court can give a decision on the title of property at the first hearing itself. right? बाद में तो देगा ही देगा. If the court is my voice breaking? Okay, is it fine now, class?
No, it's good.
Ma'am, initially your voice was breaking.
No, it's okay, ma'am.
Okay, now it's fine? Okay.
Yes, ma'am, it's fine.
All right. So if the okay, thank you. So at the first hearing itself, if the court feels that I have sufficient evidence to decide to whom this property belongs, then the court can give a decision regarding the title of the property also, that this person is the owner of the property, right? Third, where the admissions of the parties do not enable the court to do so adjudicate, it may direct that an issue or issues between the parties be framed and tried, and that any claimant be made a plaintiff in lieu of or in addition to the original plaintiff, and shall proceed to try the suit in the ordinary manner. Which means what? Which means there are two situations. At the time of first hearing, firstly the court can ask the plaintiff, discharge the plaintiff from all his liabilities. Second thing that the court can do on the basis of evidence that is there, or the admissions of the parties, statement of the parties that are there, on the basis of that, the court is going to decide the suit there and then in the first hearing, decide the title and dispose of the suit, right? Third thing, if it is not possible to dispose of the suit in the first hearing itself and not decide the admission, the evidence or the admissions are not sufficient, in that case, the court is going to frame issues. After framing of issues, the entire suit proceedings will be done, and at last the decision will be given, just like the ordinary suit. And when it becomes an ordinary suit, if the court feels, then the court will make one of the defendant as plaintiff and let the other defendant remain the defendant, right? Got it, class? So जो दो plaintiff versus two defendants था, उसमें से one defendant को वो plaintiff बना देंगे और दूसरे को defendant रहने देंगे, because the suit has to be between the contesting parties. Fine? Fine, class?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Now let's come to a very important point, an exception which is there, and in fact very important rule, that is Rule 5. Rule 5 says agents and tenants may not institute the interpleader suit. Now what does it say? Nothing in this order shall be deemed to enable the agents to sue their principals or tenants to sue their landlords for the purpose of compelling them to interplead with any person other than the persons making a claim through such principals or landlords. Now this rule basically puts a limitation on the power of agents and tenants. Now agent, you mean agent is a person, and there's a whole law of agency, and when you're doing partnership, you would have done the principle of agency, that when one person is authorized to act on behalf of the other, then the person who is acting becomes the agent, and the person on whose behalf is doing that work becomes the principal. Right? So there are certain rights and liabilities that are there for agent and principal. आपके behalf पे, आपके लिए, आपकी authorization के साथ अगर कोई काम करता है, that person is your agent and you are his principal. Right? So this rule says that an agent cannot file a suit against his principal. Let's say there is some property which is with the agent, and the principal is claiming him, and some other person is also claiming him, claiming the same property, right? Now the agent cannot take his principal and the other person to the court, because these are some kind of there is a kind of a relation of mutual trust and confidence between an agent and a principal, and a tenant and a landlord. Because tenant is let's say tenant किसी के घर में, आप किसी के घर में किराए पे रहने जाते हो, you become the tenant of that person, and later on you are the one who is in possession of the house. Now there are two people who come to you and they say, okay, this property is mine vacated. The other person comes, this property is mine vacated. So you do not know who is the real owner of the property. But then you have taken this house on rent from somebody, right? So he is your landlord. If somebody else is coming to you and saying that this is my property and I am the real owner, so you will not pay the rent to the landlord from whom you took the property on rent, और आप मुझे दोगे, then you cannot take your landlord to the court for interpleading, because you have taken the property on rent from that particular person only. So these are basically rules which are because of mutual trust, confidence, and to maintain the sanctity of such kind of relations. These exceptions have been made. An agent cannot take a principal to the court for an interpleader if somebody is claiming something is in possession of an agent and the principal and other parties claiming it. Similarly, a tenant cannot take a person, his landlord, to the court if the landlord and some other person is also claiming the same right, that same thing that is in possession of the tenant, that property, right? Let me read. However, there is another exception to that also, and that comes in the last line that we have for this. Let me read out. There are two illustrations which are given. First illustration says, A deposit a box of jewels with B as his agent, right? So A is the principal, B is the agent. The principal ने क्या किया? He is given a jewelry box to his agent B. Now there is a third person, C. C alleges that the jewelry was wrongfully obtained from him by A and claims them from B. So then A goes, there's a third person, C, he goes to the agent and he tells the agent, look, this property is actually mine, but your principal, that Mr. A, has wrongfully taken it from me. So give me, this property rightfully belongs to me. So give it back to me. So the agent does not have the right to take this Mr. C to take his principal to the court and claiming that, my principal is also claiming right, my principal Mr. A is also claiming the right over this property, and this person C, he's also claiming right over this box of jewelry. I do not know whom to give it to. He does not have this right because this property was handed over to him by the agent, by the principal, and there are certain rights that have to be there between between the agent and the principal. He cannot take his principal to the court. However, there is one situation in which an agent can also take his principal to the court, and when is that situation? That situation arises when, come to the last line of this says, interferes with any person or any person making, okay. The tenant sues his landlord for the purpose of compelling him to interfere with some other person other than the person. Okay, the agent cannot take his principal to the court to interplead with some other person, but he can take the person to court, he take his principal to interplead with some other person, making claim through such principal or landlord. If some other person is making claim through the principal only, then in that case he can take him to the court. And that is explained in illustration B. And what does it say? It says, A deposit a box of jewelry with B as his agent. He then writes to C. A is the principal, he has deposited the jewelry box with B as his agent. Then he writes to C for the purpose of making the jewelry as a security for the debt due from himself to C. So he had made this jewelry as a security. क्या कहते हैं इसको? What is the legal term for it? Quickly, class, tell me. Can you put some
Mortgage.
No. Mortgage is a movable property. What is a movable property?
Collateral.
Pledge. ठीक है? Pledge होता है. Okay. Now, this person has made this property as a security for his loan that he has taken. The principal has taken a loan, and he has written a letter to Mr. C that this is a security for the money that I have taken a loan from you. Now, afterwards, what happens? That A and C, agent and Mr. C, the principal A and C are claiming this property from the agent. Now in this case what happens? A afterwards alleges that C's debt is satisfied and C alleges the contrary, that my debt has not been paid off. Both claim that jewelry from B. In such a case, B may institute the interpleader suit against A and C. So in this situation, what is different is that this right that C is claiming from the agent is through the principal only. आपके प्रिंसिपल ने मेरे पास एक प्रॉपर्टी रखी थी एज अ सिक्योरिटी फॉर द मनी दैट ही हैज टेकन अ लोन, दैट एंड ही हैज नॉट पेड द लोन, दैट इज व्हाई आई एम आस्किंग यू टू हैंड ओवर द प्रॉपर्टी टू मी. So the right of this third person is coming through the principal, whereas the principal is saying that no, I have repaid the money, so there is no need to give the property to him, give it to me, right? So when the right of the third person is coming through the principal only, in such a case the agent cannot decide whom to give the property. So in such case he can give the property to he can take both the parties to court. Fine, class? So please understand this is when we come to interpreter section, rule 5 is important, which explains to you principal and the tenant and agent cannot take the principal or landlord to court, but they can take if the claim is being made through the principal or landlord themselves. Just read the illustrations 2-3 times. Then rule 6 talks about charge for the plaintiff's cost. This is what Anjali that you were talking about. Where the suit is properly instituted, the court may provide for the cost of the original plaintiff by giving him a charge of the thing claimed or in some other effectual way. So whatever cost has been incurred by the plaintiff, that will be given to that person, right? So if any one of you has any questions, we have 3 minutes left. I have a class at 10:30. So all those who have missed your attendance, quickly put your roll number. जिन्होंने पहले नहीं डाला था वो लोग, please quickly put your roll numbers in the chat box. And if anyone has any,
हेलो.
yes, tell me, Sriram.
मैम एक्चुअली एक प्रॉब्लम है, मैंने आपके डेली क्लास की है बट अटेंडेंस नहीं दिया.
Background sound. All right. Now, interpleader suit. Now, before starting with the BEREC provisions and before reading out the provisions, I will just tell you what interpleader suit basically means. Interpleader suit basically means, just imagine a situation that you are having something which does not belong to you, right? And which is not yours, somebody has given it to you for safekeeping or something like that. And then there are two people who are claiming the same thing from you, right? Let's take a very generic, simple example. Let's say you found something, right? You found a gold ring. You were walking on the road and you found a gold ring, right? Then you being a good citizen and a very aware, nice citizen of India, what you do is you paste a notice. You found a gold ring in your college and you paste a notice in the college that look, I found a gold ring, so to whomsoever it belongs, he can come and take from me. Now there are two people who come to claim the same thing from you, and both of them are claiming the right over that thing. Right, both of them, and don't give me those things that okay, the one who will give the right description. हम पूछेंगे रिंग कैसी थी, क्या डिजाइन था, ये सब चीजें भूल जाओ. But only for the purpose of explanation, I'm giving you this illustration.
दोस्तों, ब्राज ग्रुप आशा करता है कि आप सभी लोगों को ये लेसन पसंद आया होगा. आप अपना फीडबैक कमेंट बॉक्स में देना न भूलें. थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग.